Thank you, Ambassador, for accepting our request for a sit-down interview. Just for the record, Ambassador André is a career diplomat with an extensive experience on African continent, including 2 previous ambassadorships in Djibouti and Mauritania, right?
That's correct.
Just to commence, Somalia is going through a difficult period with ongoing fighting in Las Anod, which also conflicts with the fight against Alshabaab and the devastating impact of drought affecting more than half of the country's population. What's your general assessment given the above challenges?
My general assessment is that Somalia is, with difficulty, overcoming one by one all the obstacles to national revival. Going in the right direction, but the travel is challenging.
How challenging is it?
Well, as you correctly identified, you have the issues of Abaraha iyo Amniga. You have the issues of drought. Half of the country's population are suffering from lack of food. And a prolonged period of that means children will be stunted in their growth and suffer other developmental issues. We are hoping that absolute famine will be avoided. So far, the American people, who have contributed 80% of all international humanitarian response to this drought, have been able to prevent the famine. On the security side, we see the government working with local defense forces has made tremendous progress, but there is much yet to be done. And much of the country remains under Al-Shabaab oppression. We need to see the sovereignty of a legitimate government of Somalia at the federal and state levels spread throughout all the national territory. This is already a long answer. I don't know if you want me to talk about Las Khanud.
We'll get into the details of that story.
Okay, very good.
Now, delving into the heart of the matter, Al-Shabaab. For months now, the Somalia federal government has been engaged in sustained military campaign against Al-Shabaab, and there are some notable gains. What's your assessment so far with the fight against Al-Shabaab? On a scale of 1 to 10, how best will you rate President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's government?
I will compare to the 15-year struggle to free this country from the negative influence of that group of death and destruction. The last time we saw this much progress was during the liberation of Mogadishu, which was primarily by African Union troops. This is a Somali-initiated, Somali-led, Somali-fought effort to free the country, and there is no comparison. This is by far the most ambitious and most successful effort to date by the Somali security forces. The most difficult stage is ahead. The government has a well-thought-out plan on how to end this negative influence of Al-Shabaab on the country, and we see steady progress made.
How much support is U.S. giving the government on this?
So on the security side, I would say that the United States is a valued and important partner in support of Somali security forces, as are other partners. At the beginning of this administration, His Excellency President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud requested that 6 international security partners meet regularly to coordinate and share information, and then to meet with government. 3 multinational partners, that is the African Union, the United Nations, and the European Union, and 3 bilateral partners, the United States, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. That has been happening, and that has produced a lot of benefits that come from coordination. So the U.S. is an important partner supporting Somalia, but Somalia has other partners as well, and we work in that context in a united fashion.
Mr. Ambassador, there are concerns that the U.S. strikes against the group are very limited compared to other countries that are supporting Somalia on this. How will you respond to this?
Well, I am surprised to hear that there are such perceptions, but as I said, we work together with other partners. We do not seek to dominate the international partners in security space. We have great respect for what others do. But you will hear many of those who are familiar with the situation praise the Danab Advanced Infantry of the Somali National Army. The United States has recruited, trained, equipped, mentored in the field Danab. Danab, which is known for being fierce on the battlefield and treating the civilian population with respect. We also supply air support each time that there is an instance where the Somali commander is asking for air support and we supply it. We always give all the information to the government makes an announcement, and then we do the same. So we are very open and transparent about that support.
On the financial front, the Somali government says it has blocked hundreds of bank accounts belonging to the group. Are you supporting the government on this?
The strategy of the government of looking at the finances of this group, looking at the false religious narrative of this group, confronting militarily when this group is seeking to control Somali communities. All of this comes together in a united, well thought out, well planned effort to bring Somali sovereignty throughout the entire country and to protect Somali citizens from violence and extortion. So this is a very logical step to look at the finances. The way it has been explained to me is they freeze the accounts and then the government with its experts reviews the accounts. If the account is clean, it's released again. If it's not clean, then appropriate steps are taken.
Are you optimistic about the end of Al-Shabaab, Mr. Ambassador?
I see the commitment of this government. I see the spirit of the Somali people who are determined to achieve national revival and to remove this obstacle to national revival. I am optimistic. Again, we've never seen a sustained, successful effort that is Somali-initiated, Somali-led, Somali-fought, and I believe that this will be taken to its conclusion.
What do you think needs to be done in areas already liberated from the group?
Stabilization. What that means, and this is a key point, as Al-Shabaab is leaving a community that it has formerly oppressed, they will poison the wells, they will blow up a borehole, they will bring down cell phone towers where people are receiving both remittances and from humanitarian cash grants. They will do as much destruction as they can. So initially, these are Somali officials providing humanitarian relief. That could mean trucking in water because all the water resources, water infrastructure has been destroyed. And then the next step is bringing in services. It takes a while to build a proper health clinic, so bringing in a mobile clinic, bringing in a military court to provide justice before the proper civilian court is built in, and schooling. What we do is resource Somali officials. All these years, sometimes 10 more years, that these communities have been suffering under Al-Shabaab, they are now enjoying the benefits of relations of Somali legitimate government officials at the district, state, and federal level. They don't need to see us foreigners delivering the aid. Our role is to resource Somali officials from the legitimate government at the district, state, and federal level, who then deliver the services that these communities are in such great need of.
Last month, the United States announced $9 million military aid to help Somalia's ongoing campaign against Al-Shabaab militants. It's the first such direct support since the U.S. forces returned to Somalia. Now, according to Abdulkadir Mohammed, that's Somalia's defense minister, the military donation from the U.S. was a show of confidence and testimony that the Somali military can be trusted to manage weapons without it falling to the wrong hands. Do you consent with him?
Yes, the weapons and ammunition management regime is much improved, and it is continuing to improve. That is a very important aspect of this overall effort. It is correct to say that our delivery of arms, including some heavy arms, to the Somali forces shows our great confidence that they will be managed in a professional manner and that they will directly contribute to continued victories of Somali security forces over those who wish to bring only death and destruction to this country.
As a Security Council member of the United Nations, just backing up with whatever you've responded to, will the United States veto lifting the arms embargo on Somalia?
The next opportunity for the sanctions regime to be reviewed will look at the specific benchmarks that were in the last United Nations Security Council passed resolution. The government of Somalia is addressing those specific benchmarks one by one. And we are doing our role, which is to report to the Security Council as each of those specific benchmarks are met. So that would have a clear implication for where things are heading. I would point out that the sanctions that apply to the legitimate government of Somalia were greatly lightened the last time around, and specific benchmarks were supplied in order to finish completely. Halas. That is where we want to get.
So you foresee the...
I know the commitment and the ability of the government to address the benchmarks, and once those clear benchmarks are met, it has a clear implication, but I can't speak for the entire council.
How instrumental has DANAP, the US-trained brigades, being in quenching Somalia's thirst for peace and tranquility?
I want to give a shout out to the Turkish-trained Gorgor as well. I've been very pleased to see that in the field, Gorgor and DANAP work very closely together. There's mutual respect there, and both of those units are highly effective. Again, I will say that they have a reputation for being fierce on the battlefield and treating their fellow Somali citizens with respect. They've had a lot of human rights training and civil military relations training.
DANAP means lighting, by the way, in Somalia.
Lightning, and Gorgor means eagle.
Eagle, good.
Yes.
The foreign trained units tend to operate outside the Somali National Army command structure and often receive higher salaries. Don't you think this will build resentment within the Somali National Army and diffuse loyalties among the forces?
Certainly over time, as Somalia gets into a post-conflict situation, there is a lot of harmonizing to be done. You have different units of the Somali National Army trained by different partners, and there are elements of the Somali National Army from an earlier period in Somalia's history. So there will be a great job ahead for reforms and harmonization so that you have one unified system for Somali security forces. And while that is a big job, doing that at the same time as fighting the enemy is a bit too much. So I believe that it is staged. Get to the post-conflict situation and then do what necessary to have a fully harmonized, unified, professional security force to protect and defend the Somali people.
Now, for 12 years, the US denied any civilian casualties from air attacks, admitting just 5 deaths so far in Somalia, something humanitarian organizations and a number of locals have refuted. What's your take on that?
I can speak for over 1 year that I have been here and have had eyes on every single instance of our providing air support to the Somali National Army. I know that for the last year that I have been here, extreme care is taken to avoid any such casualties, and that has been successful. I have personally looked into each and every one of these strikes. So let me leave it at that. I'm speaking for the strikes carried out by the United States military only.
On February 2nd, 2020, Jilib, a place known as Jilib, 5 civilians were killed according to Amnesty International. The United States stated that only 1 individual died.
What year was that?
2020,
Okay.
February 2nd, a place called Jilib.
Yeah, I know where Jilib is.
You know Jilib is. 5 individuals.
It's the enemy's capital.
Yeah, 5 civilians died, according to Amnesty International. Something the United States stated that they had killed terrorists. On another case, in a place called Abdo Dibile, on 18th March the same year, these 3 individuals were killed. The United States also stated they were terrorists. A journalist writing for Foreign Policy tabled evidence a number of the individuals were civilians to AFRICOM, but AFRICOM never responded about that story. The research and investigation done by the Amnesty International were also concurrent with the journalist findings. What's your take on that, Mr. Ambassador?
Again, I can speak of my direct knowledge over the last year, and I have made a special point of reviewing each and every instance. For what happened 3 years ago in enemy-controlled territory, where follow-up is quite difficult, I can't speak to that. I don't want to say that which I do not know.
Has the administration not done any follow-up?
It's still, mentioning Jilib, it is still enemy-controlled territory, and now 3 years have passed. So I don't want to speak of that which I do not have direct knowledge of, and I've been here a little over a year. That was 3 years ago.